There are many, many challenges that come the way of an archbishop. I've learned never to worry alone. Put it on the table with your colleagues, and we'll figure it out.
Well, I guess we call this an exit interview with an archbishop, which is rather unique, and it's kind of a first. So my first question, Your Grace, is about the exit. What did you think when you got the call that you were going to Vancouver, when you got that phone call or text or email?
Oh, no, it was a phone call. It's a phone call. It was a bit of a surprise, to put it mildly, because when you get the call from the nuncio that the Pope has named you. So it's just a statement of fact. The Holy Father has named you, in this case, the Archbishop of Vancouver. But typically, in these situations, there's a whole consultation process, obviously, that goes on ahead of this time. And the one who's being considered doesn't know anything about it. So it's this bolt from the blue. So whether it was when I was named for Pembroke or here in Edmonton or now for Vancouver. And this particular day, it was, you usually remember something about where you were or what you were doing.
Yeah.
I was just on my way out the door, actually, for a day with education officials, talking ironically about some of the initiatives we were putting in place, how we're going to carry them forward, and things that I was involved in, things that I was really looking forward to bringing to completion, and then bang, and get this call. So I'd say for a couple of days, my head was reeling a bit. Not something I expected to happen. You have to deal with a whole host of competing emotions in that.
Yes.
Right? But over time, just got used to the idea and started to put things in place now for the transition to move ahead.
Now, how do you compare it to the feeling you had when you got the call saying you're going to Pembroke or you're coming to Edmonton?
It's much the same in the shock value and the surprise value. When I was a priest in Halifax when I first got a call to become a bishop back in 2002. So that was a real surprise. And I didn't, apologies to anybody in Pembroke who might be listening to this interview. Yeah. I didn't know where it was.
Yeah.
Pembroke, that's Ontario, because I was in Halifax at the time. So I had to get used to that. Edmonton, I had visited maybe once or twice in and out for a couple of meetings that I could recall. Same with Vancouver, actually. I've been there only once or twice quickly for meetings. So I didn't know Pembroke, didn't know Edmonton, and I don't know Vancouver that well at all. So in each case, you start off with a pretty steep learning curve and get to know the people, learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can, and then move into the mission.
Now, you mentioned that you were surprised. I think I can speak for members of the congregation, the faithful here in Edmonton, that we were all surprised. I think we all kind of thought, Archbishop Smith, he's with us.
Well, sure.
Forever, till retirement or something like that. So people have been asking me, like, well, what was the process? Did the Archbishop apply for this job in Vancouver? What's going on? Obviously, that's not the case.
But I get that question quite a bit. Did you apply for this? And what are the qualifications, et cetera, et cetera? And no. It's, as I mentioned a minute ago, whenever there's a need for a bishop, the Pope's representative in a particular country, we call him the nuncio, launches a process of consultation really across the country, consulting bishops, priests, lay people that would be knowledgeable of various individuals, of the needs of the church, and so on. And then what happens is that from all of that, the nuncio compiles a dossier on each individual being considered, narrows it down to a list of three names. We call that a terna. And those names, together with the accompanying files, all go off to Rome. There's a special department, we call it a dicastery at the Holy See for bishops. And they have their consultors, cardinals and others, that look at all the files, and then they make a recommendation to the Pope. And the Pope can say yes or no. If he says no, the process starts all over again. If he says yes, then the nuncio is informed, and the nuncio then picks up the phone and calls the person who's been named by the Pope.
You've been in the Edmonton Archdiocese, well, it's almost 20 years. Let's say it's close enough, 2 decades and stuff. What do you think is the greatest strength, or one of the greatest strengths of the Archdiocese here?
Well, I'd say, I've been thinking about that, and people have often asked me about it over those years. I'd want to say, first and foremost, there's a dynamism here that I experienced right from the get-go. So
Mhm.
every diocese has no shortage of challenges, the internal, external, whatever. And whenever a problem would arise, or whenever there'd be an opportunity for a new initiative, to
Mhm.
advance the mission, put it out there, and the people would say, "How are we going to deal with this? How do we work together?" A real desire, energy to further the mission. So I remember one bishop saying to me when I came to Edmonton, he says, "You're coming to one of the most dynamic dioceses in the country," and it's something that I could almost sense, almost touch right from the very start, and that has remained the case throughout the time that I've been here.
Similar question. And what has brought you the most joy, you think, about the culture of Edmonton, especially the Archdiocese of Edmonton?
Well, what is culture? When you think of culture for this archdiocese, I think of the multicultural nature here. It's difficult in Canada generally now, and increasingly so in our diocese, to speak of a single culture. We have so many.
Mhm.
And it is a joy, certainly for me as an archbishop, to have been able to go around to the various parishes that are associated with particular cultures, whether it's the Hungarian, the Italian, the Korean, the Vietnamese, the Chinese, Polish. It's all here, Croatian. And to be able to go into those parishes and hear them sing and pray in their mother tongue, and to be able to celebrate not just their culture, but the link between their faith and their culture, has for me been very, very exciting and very, very edifying.
Now, you mentioned the initiatives that have happened over the last, almost 20 years. One that I came to mind, I was thinking about today, was the Archbishop's dinner that you started up.
Yeah.
Ran into a bit of a snag there with COVID, but in my view, I thought the dinners were extremely
Oh,
successful.
I love those. Yeah.
But what was the intent of that project, and how do you feel about them looking back in terms of your communication with the flock, so to say?
The whole point is the opportunity to gather, to be together as Catholics in a spirit of gratitude to God for the extraordinary blessings that really have been bestowed upon the Church generally, and this archdiocese in particular. We've gone through a period of, how would I put this, toughness, taking it on the chin as Catholics for a long time. And sometimes that's something we brought on ourselves, and other times, no, it's been unmerited. And I think sometimes, especially exacerbated by COVID, people have felt beaten up by circumstances, by criticisms and so on to begin with, and then add to that the isolation that we all felt from COVID. I thought, it's going to be important for us to come together to begin with as Catholics, not to run away from any of the problems that we have, but to acknowledge the good, in the Church, to acknowledge that, it's beautiful to be a follower of Jesus Christ. It's beautiful to be a Catholic. There's nothing wrong with coming together and celebrating that.
Yeah.
So it's not these are not fundraising initiatives, but these was a dinner that I felt, would be responsive to a strongly felt need at the time to be together, to shore one another up, and to realize that in so many ways, we can be justifiably proud of being Catholic and of all the good works that are happening in this archdiocese, in our parishes, through our institutions, through our lay associations. We make a very big imprint on this province as Catholics. And it's good to acknowledge that and celebrate it. So that was really what was behind the dinner.
And I certainly feel, the feedback I got afterwards is people did feel this is a great celebration, a source of great pride and happiness. But at the same time, as you mentioned, there's a time for toughness, and I can expand on that. What are the big challenges facing us in this archdiocese?
Well, I would say that there's a root challenge that's in this archdiocese as there is in others, and that's to try and make sense, or at least understand, the two competing worldviews in which we find ourselves. So there's the worldview of the Christian, which begins from God and God's revelation, and understands existence, history, world events, and all of their unfolding in the light of what God has revealed to us in Jesus, faces all of those issues and learns from revelation as really the guiding light for our lives. So that's the fundamental Christian worldview, as opposed to the one that's becoming increasingly predominant in our world today. And that's a worldview that's centered on the self and the self's will and the self's own desires.
Mm-hmm.
I become my own moral compass, and whatever I decide to do must be the right thing to do. And that Andrews, causes a real clash between those two worldviews. And if we're not careful, we can allow that secular, self-centered worldview to enter into our own perspectives and mix things up for us. It's going to be really important going forward for us to maintain very, very clear vision of the worldview out of which we understand life, out of which we face all of our different issues, and remain solidly rooted in it. And because of that fundamental challenge, the question that I've so often asked, and I'll raise it again and people think I'm like a broken record, but it's the question of who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? What voices are you allowing to shape your mindset and hence your behaviors? And if it's voices that in any way take you away from the voice of God spoken in Jesus Christ, let it go. Don't let it influence. That I think is the key challenge that really defines our time and defines the life that we lead as Catholic people within this archdiocese too.
You established a lot of important relationships during your time here in Edmonton. What can you tell us about the various groups that you work closely with and how they've helped your leadership here?
Oh, they've all helped me. My heavens, we've got a healthy sense of co-responsibility here in the Archdiocese. The popes, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, now Francis, they've all insisted that because of our fundamental bond through baptism, we all have a co-responsibility for the mission of the Church, exercised in particular ways according to our charism, place in the Church, and so on. It's something that we share. And the relationships that I've established really have helped to further that. So I think first and foremost with the priests and the deacons, my fellow clergy, we share a sacramental bond. And in fact, it's really through the parish priests that the Archdiocese is present in the parishes. You can't be there all the time. So that shared sacramental bond and mission is something that I've always treasured, and I've found great responsiveness here from the priests and the deacons. So I've really appreciated that. The witness of the consecrated women and men in the Archdiocese, we have some real heroes that over many, many years have shown how they've given their life for the gospel. We have also in this Archdiocese quite an extensive, how to put this, lay governance experience. So when I think of our Catholic our schools governed by the elected trustees, the Covenant Health family, right, and the governance exercised by lay people there, Catholic Social Services, lay governance through its board. And across, so they're all connected with the Archbishop, as they have to be because of their Catholic identity. But I've always found, again, there's that zeal, that desire to bring to the needs of the particular institution their professional gifts. And we have some highly professional people that are wanting to do all that they can to serve the Lord through these institutions. We have many, many lay associations in the Archdiocese. And I'm thinking too finally, there'll be more, but I'm thinking too finally of the post-secondary institutions that we have here.
Yeah.
So Newman Theological College together with the seminary, St. Joseph's College on the University of Alberta. Again, there's lay governance there, and people just really giving all that they can in service to that institution and through it to the Church. So the multiple relationships that have unfolded in these different ways, all of which are an expression of that co-responsibility that we have for the Church's mission. It's just been a joy and a real edification to see the example of the people who love the Lord, love the Church, and want to serve. And how do we do it all together as members of the same family?
Is there one moment or one memory that kind of encapsulates the challenges faced by the Archdiocese with your leadership, and how did that moment or memory, how does that make you stronger? How does it edify you when you think of it?
Well, I think there's two that come to mind actually, and they were actually unique to this Archdiocese. The first has to be the papal visit. Not every Not every diocese gets to host the Pope. And that's an extraordinarily complex undertaking.
Yes.
But we just put the word out, reached out to people, and what can I do? How can I help? What's my expertise? How's this all going to come together? I just found that so humbling. And it was all in the service of another, all in the service of the Indigenous peoples. And everybody knew that there needed to be a life-transforming, life-healing encounter between them and the Holy Father. How do we rally and make this happen? This was at the outset of my time here, was with the building of the seminary and our theological college.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first things, well, it is probably the first thing I had to grapple with, because Cardinal Collins, just before he was called away to Toronto, he had moved it to the point where we were just about to sell our old seminary and college to make way for the Henday, the Ring Road.
Yeah.
And I stepped into that before anything was signed. And so
Yeah.
first thing I had to do, Tim, tell the people of the Archdiocese, I'm going to sell your seminary on you, so how do you like me so far, kind of thing. But we did that, moved it to the grounds here next to the pastoral offices. And that has become for us a real source of blessing. But what do you do how do you build a seminary? How do you build anything? So I really had to bring a lot of people together with their own expertise on this, specific to that project. And again, right from the outset, how do we help? And there was never any hesitation about telling me what I needed to hear and what they were thinking to make this really, really work. Good collaboration and mutual, frank, open dialogue from the outset, all in the service of a project that we knew would be of critical importance to this archdiocese and for Western Canada also. Those are the two examples that come to mind.
Well, I'm going to go back to the papal visit, because of course it was a big deal for the Edmonton Archdiocese, but a big deal for the country.
Sure.
Really a big deal for the world, to be honest with you. And your role was not local, it was national. It was looking after the whole project, the whole visit, all across the country. So when you look back at that, and we didn't have much time to plan.
We did not.
Are you, I mean, you must be very happy. You must be very pleased the way it turned out.
Oh, sure. Grateful to God. I was with a session of priests, and this was all as things were starting to unfold. And you're right, we just had, 3-4 months for something that normally takes 2 or 3 years to pull off.
Yes.
And I forget the context of the conversation, but our speaker was talking about that there's a need at certain points in everybody's life, when you have major challenges beyond your ability, for extraordinary faith. In other words, just put everything into the hands of Jesus and that extraordinary faith to trust that he's got the ability to step in and carry and bring things to the completion that he wills for it. And I would have to say that every day was an act of, felt like extraordinary faith. And so, it did come out well. The long-term effects we'll see, right? The whole point was to further reconciliation. And that's a long-term process, but I do think it was well launched. The Pope for that he was the Pope of the moment. He was pitch perfect. And many people among the Indigenous communities have said since that was a decisive moment in their life, their journey towards healing.
We mentioned, of course, the journey, the reconciliation journey that we're still in the midst of.
Yep.
And I guess after the papal visit, there's a lot of progress, but how far down the road are we on that journey right now, do you feel?
Well, I think we're well moving along it, well launched, but reconciliation happens one relationship at a time, we like to say, which means, first of all, it's going to unfold locally. That's where relationships are fostered. And the local circumstances may differ across the country in the relationships that are possible. And then within individuals, they all have to be honored for where they are on their particular journey. So in the immediate wake of the papal visit, there were some people saying to me, boy, I'm forgiving. I'm ready to move on. I can feel the healing. Or they would weep about the healing that they've seen in others. Other people, not so fast, right? Well, okay, we get it. The whole point is we're moving together forward into the future, always allowing people that opportunity to say what's on their mind or in their heart. How do we listen respectfully in order to hear what they're truly saying? And how do we find ways to together to bring about that healing. So on the basis here locally of some of the projects that we've been able to sponsor financially that aid in healing, in cultural preservation and so on the basis of some of the dialogue that I've had subsequently with Indigenous leaders, Indigenous parishioners, I'm hopeful. I can see things moving forward, but I think we have to understand it's going to take some time.
Good points. What's unique about this archdiocesan community that we should keep in our hearts and minds going forward?
Well, going forward, I hesitate to say that this is unique to us because it's an important thing to monitor because I've seen this unfold in other areas lately, and I think we need to pay close attention to this. There's something happening. There's something happening among our young adults. We're seeing growing numbers of young adults now, defining that, say, between 18 and 35, that are really manifesting a strong desire to be brought back into the full life of the church, to understand the beauty of the church, her tradition, her history, to find their identity and discover their identity within the mystery of the church. And so we have great gatherings of young people for adoration, for confessions, for around Newman Theological College. Other dioceses are noticing the same thing. And I'm finding this very encouraging, very edifying, very hopeful. And together with that, starting to see the numbers of vocations to the priesthood edge up, right? So we have 16 right now in the just for the Archdiocese alone. We want to pray for more, obviously. Other dioceses are noticing that also something's happening, right? The Holy Spirit's at work. People in this Archdiocese are praying for vocations, and they see the Holy Spirit answering. I'm also noticing through news reports around the globe of growing numbers of people coming into the church, record numbers that haven't come to be baptized before. Here in Canada, over in France, around, something is unfolding now. In the midst of all kinds of news in the secular world, we're not going to hear about all of this. You can maybe not be aware of it, but let's pay attention to the work of the Holy Spirit. The Lord's always in charge. It's the Lord's church. He knows what the church needs. He knows where he's leading the church. It's up to us to look for the signs showing what he's about, what he's doing, and then give witness to it and collaborate with it. And I'm seeing some hopeful signs right now, and I hope we're able to keep that in our hearts and minds as we move forward.
I'm going to take you back again to when you first got here. What did you most appreciate about Edmonton when you first arrived, looking back there?
Yeah. I'd say the eager welcome. The welcome was there. It was very warm. It was very, very fraternal and so on, supportive. But there was an eagerness in the welcome also, right? We've got a mission, and now we have a shepherd. How we're going to work together with the Archbishop and move forward. So it's, again, I'll go back to that word dynamism that I used earlier, but it was expressed at that point, I'd say, in the welcome that I would qualify as an eager one. Let's get moving and see what the Lord has in store for us.
Now, you're the shepherd, so we're supposed to be learning from you, but I want to ask you, what did you learn from Edmonton?
Oh, yeah. Where do I start? I'll go back to that experience of co-responsibility. One of the things that I've learned time and again, and we use the phrase here an awful lot at the office, I've learned never to worry alone. Never worry alone. There are many, many challenges that come the way of an archbishop, like there are many challenges that come the way to mom and dad, to students. It's all the work. Everybody has major, major challenges. But there can be a tendency to kind of stew on them, worry, what am I going to do? Don't worry alone. Put it on the table with your colleagues, and we'll figure it out. And that's what I've experienced here. It's easy to kind of worry when you're alone, and sometimes there's issues that only the bishop knows everything about, and there can be a sense of aloneness in that, but you can't let that be determinative. to the degree possible, put the issue out on the table with the people that you trust, whose opinion that you really have confidence in, and say, how are we going to figure this out, and how are we going to go forward with it? And that always works out well. So I've learned not to worry alone.
Well, there might be some people out there worried about who is going to be the next archbishop.
Don't worry.
Lots of people are asking the question.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give us, the congregation here, as we prepare for a new shepherd?
Well, two things. First of all, don't forget who's in charge. This is the Lord's church, right? And the Lord already knows who's coming here as the archbishop. I don't. Nobody else knows right now. I think the process of consultation is unfolding, but the Lord knows. The Lord's in charge, and he will raise up the individual that the archdiocese needs at this particular point. So that leads to the second, and that is to pray. Pray for whomever this individual will be, that the Lord will grant to him and to all of us together with him every grace, every blessing that we need to carry forward the mission that's ours in this local archdiocese.
We all know that this is an exciting time for you to face the new challenges in Vancouver. What are you most looking forward to about Vancouver? Not just the weather, because it can rain a lot there, but you don't shovel rain.
I don't shovel rain, no, and people are giving me all kinds of rain gear for a golf game and all these kind of, I'm getting teased about that kind of mercilessly, actually. But, well, Vancouver is going to be entirely new for me. Right? Again, I think I mentioned earlier, I've only been there once or twice, seen it from the air landing and flying out. So the next little while will be for me pretty intense learning. The learning curve, meeting the people, learning of all the great good that Archbishop Miller has done up until this point, learning from them what the challenges are, and entering into that gradually. So I am looking forward to that. It's a larger city. So as one person put it, well, you're going to have more people to reach. So in other words, we've got this treasure that we call the gospel. We've got this treasure. How do we get it out there? How do we get through with the message? And that challenge is going to be increasing now exponentially because of the larger center that's there. So looking forward to meeting the people, learning the reality of the city, the cultures that are there, and then working with everybody around that central question. How do we communicate the gospel today in a way that gets through the heart and transforms lives?
You come from Halifax, the East Coast and the Atlantic Ocean. And now you're going to the West Coast, the Pacific Ocean. Do you find there's something, I mean, everybody likes being close to the ocean, but do you find there's something spiritual about being close to the ocean?
I don't know.
Something that stirs you?
Spiritual so much. And the bishops of British Columbia were quite quick to acknowledge that, yes, you're going from one coast, going from the Atlantic, now to what they call the best coast. We'll see. Jury's out, you know. Same thing with salmon, you know. I have to start telling people I like Pacific salmon when we all know that Atlantic salmon is superior. I think I'm going to have fun with a lot of that stuff, Oilers versus Canucks and these kinds of things. But spiritual, no, I guess for me, it's just so much associated with the ocean, so much associated with my upbringing. Right? I just grew up next to the ocean. I was never in a position where I could get out on the boats and do deep sea fishing or sailing or anything like that. But just being near the water and breathing in the sea air has always been kind of, for me, kind of a tonic, a healing, a decompression. And now over in Vancouver, I'll have the benefit of both ocean and mountains. I've grown to really, really love the mountains here in Alberta. And so now we'll have both surrounding me. So that's something I'm looking forward to also.
What do you think you'll miss the most about Edmonton, and from a pastoral and a personal perspective?
Again, where do I start? It has to be the people, Tim. I mean, you talked in one of your earlier points there about the relationships that get developed. Yes. And I've been blessed with so many good ones, so many good ones, working together with people. And one of the things that I've enjoyed too, and we're in our communication studio here, is the creativity around how to get the gospel out, whether we had that podcast for a while, and the communications team here has always been so good in finding new creative ways to advance the mission of the gospel. So the relationships, the frankness, the openness, that co-responsibility, work, collaborative relationships, trying to get the word out and advance the mission of the church, and the wonderful, wonderful support and edification that I've experienced through all of that. How can I not miss that? How can I not miss it?
You're going to drive out to Vancouver because you got to get the car there and
do.
everything,
Yep.
and you're going to take a long time to get there. That's a lot of time for reflection and thought. What are you going to be thinking about on that drive to Vancouver? It's an amazing drive.
Yeah. Well, the main thing I want to do in that drive is take a week or so for retreat. Things can get a little high-powered in the life of an archbishop, and in the last little while, in transition, get caught up in a lot of minutiae, little tiny details. I'm going to need a little bit of time to decompress and kind of let that go, and then focus upon the Lord, the reset that's implicit in all of this, and what's the Lord want to teach me at this particular moment? What's the Lord want to call me to, and so on. And try to open my heart, my mind as much as possible, really, to the movement of the Holy Spirit at this particular time, carrying me into the new. So that'll be the focus of the retreat. And as I drive along, Lord, there's going to be many things go through my mind. There's going to be a lot of memories, for sure. But I expect also there's going to be, okay, what's next? And I'm starting to sense that this is on the horizon, and how are we going to deal with that? So it'll be a real mixture of things, I'm sure.
How about all of us back here? How can we help you and support you? What can we do in terms of prayer as we prepare you for this next part of your journey?
Well, that question came up, I think, in the context of a podcast one time. How do you want the people to pray for you? And so I'll give you the same answer. Pray that I don't mess up. Right?
That's a good answer.
Pray that I don't mess up, because the only thing that I can offer is weakness, right? And the Lord fills us with all the gifts that we need. And as soon as I or anybody starts to think it kind of revolves around me to any degree, then you fall right away. So just pray that I don't mess up, that I'm always open to wherever the Lord's leading, and that His will gets accomplished.
Is there one memory from your time here in Edmonton that makes you laugh or smile as you reflect on almost 2 decades here?
When I talk about smile, I always have to go back to the kids. I mean, I just love children. And one of the blessings I've had is the opportunity to get in and visit the schools, especially all ages, but especially the elementary. And you never know what's going to come at you, right, from the kids, these questions out of the blue. But it's just to see their innocence and their joy, and to see so many competent adults gathering around them to help them to grow in the faith and committing their lives to the kids. It's just, if I think back on different little anecdotes of the kids and things that they've said over time, and those always are for me a source of a smile.
What's inspired you or helped you draw closer to Jesus during your time here in Edmonton as you look back?
Problems without a solution. Those are the ones that bring me to my knees, right? Just how in the name of heavens are we going to deal with this? So when you realize that you don't see a way forward with the problem, it just brings you up pretty quickly and closely to the reality of your own limit and your own need for the Lord. So I may have no solution to an issue, but I know He does. And so those are the moments that really bring me to my knees before the Blessed Sacrament. Give it all over to Him, and then kind of sit back and see how He's going to pull it off, And those are the instances. There's many others, but that's what first comes to mind. It's that experience of utter need that I have found over time has brought me closer to the Lord and helped me to realize He's always there. He's always there. And He knows what needs to be done. And if you let Him take over, He'll do it and lead you to that solution that otherwise would remain elusive.
Grace, I know that the members of the Catholic community here in Edmonton, they want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for everything you've done for us. Safe travels.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Good luck and God bless.
Thank you. And thanks for this chat. I've enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you.